Hey, everybody, and welcome back to my Zero Carb Life. I'm Kelly Hogan, and I'm joined today by Katie Kelly. Katie is a nutrition and binge eating sports nutritionist who has also cured her own Crohn's disease by eating carnivore. So I have watched you on Instagram a lot. And one thing, I know we have some stuff in common and some stuff definitely not in common. You're a cat person. I'm a dog person. But we're going to try to work past it today, Katie. We are. But we both love meat, and we both love big hair. I know that.
Oh, what is it? Bigger the hair, closer to God, right?
Yes. So I know we've got that in common at least. You are a hardcore CrossFitter, and oh my gosh, I watch you climb the ropes. That to me is like, how is she doing that? I just watch you in awe. So that we do not have in common. I want more of that, and I have started incorporating a little bit more of like to failure exercises, because I'm one that does like a little checklist. I'm like, I did my 20 squats, I did my 20 push-ups,
that is no, isn't it? Check.
Yes. It's a lot harder to have a checklist when it's like do it to failure. I'm like, well, give me a number. And there's not a number. Right. You do it to failure. I'm like, oh, I wanted a number. So I'm working on that. I'm learning. The thing I love about you the most, you don't play. When you have an idea, you're like, all right, listen, this is what you're doing and this is what you need to fix it. And if you don't fix it, it's because you're not in this enough. Like, you just put it out there for people. And I really respect that. Yes. So I know that you do a lot of coaching through not just carnivore, but that's obviously my main interest. You would help people with either reducing carbs or cutting out binge eating or sports, athletics. You do a lot of things, but because you are thriving on an all meat diet, I'm going to assume some of your clients are also working towards.
The majority of my clients now are low carb carnivores.
Okay. Do you see people typically, I hate to say failing, but we all know, I coach now too. I see people who try to do something. They say, I'm going to do this, and they set this goal. I'm going to go carnivore. I'm like, all right. Do you know what you need to do? And they're like, yes. A lot of times I see people who start and then they don't follow through with that. Do you typically see it more as a problem of, we're going to talk about a lot of different problems, but typically are folks over eating on carnivore or under eating on carnivore? What do you see the most?
As a general, I'd say everyone is a general population, whether you do carnivore or not. I would say 99% of the people that come to me are under eating. 99.
Yep.
And most of it is just lack of education, because we're stuck in this restrictive mindset for so long that we have to diet. We don't really know how many calories we need to be eating to function like normal human, especially if you're an active, avid exerciser. We don't realize how much we really can eat and should be eating. So really, I think it's a lack of education standpoint for most people. But yeah, under eating for sure is a huge issue.
I think if you were to ask most new carnivores what their biggest problem is, they would all say, for the most part, overeating.
Yeah, the opposite.
Yes. Everybody assumes, I'm eating too much, because we've just been trained that if you're not losing weight, it's obviously because you were taking in way too many calories. Yep. And so I get people who will write to me and say, I can't lose weight even on carnivore, and I'm only eating 1,300 calories. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I'm like, I eat that meal sometimes.
Yes. And I either want to ask, are you a tiny child? Are you wheelchair bound? What's happening? Why are you only having 1,300 calories? And so they just assume, obviously, calories in, calories out. If I'm not losing, that's my mother calling. I'm sorry. So they assume if I'm not losing weight, I'm eating too much. But I see it also. That is not the case. So talk to me. I've never on the show, I've talked about it a little bit on Instagram about reverse dieting. I typically just refer people to you because you have some great information. Yes. If you meet somebody who says, I'm carnivore, I'm eating 1,300 calories per day, I'm still not losing weight, and I am overweight. Talk to them about what you might advise regarding reverse dieting.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I make sure that they're tracking their food accurately if they are tracking their food. Like you really got to make sure you're setting yourself up on a solid foundation of self-awareness really is everything. So we'll go over that. You know, do you understand how to weigh and track meat? Are you doing that correctly? You know, just walking through that process. And when I say reverse diet, really, I just explain to them like it's not a scary word. You know, it's not a dirty word. It's not a scary word. It's just a period of time where you're increasing your calories so that you can repair any adaptation that's been done to work your calories back up to what you should be eating, which is what we call your maintenance calories. You know, so where you naturally maintain your weight, you know, you're not trying to gain, you're not trying to lose, just like your happy spot. So I make sure that they understand what that means first and foremost. And then as far as implementing a protocol, like it's really going to be different for everybody because our habits are different, our mindsets are different, our lifestyles are different. Really setting out realistic expectations and making sure that they have realistic expectations on like what their body goal is, where they want to go, and where they stand right now. So that's really where I start first and foremost.
Okay. I think another name that some of us have used before, and I only started hearing this maybe back in the fall when I first talked to Bella, Steak and Butter Gal, was like all in carnivore. So we weren't methodically doing it, but it was like, okay, look, when you first start, you might really need to eat a lot. And so that was kind of like, especially if you're a long-time dieter, and I really was. Right. Yes. And so when I first started carnivore, even in 2009, they said, if you're hungry, eat. And it might be a lot. And it was a lot, like 3 pounds a day, every day. And it was not lean meat. It was very high fat. And I was just ravenous. And that's the period where some of us, I don't know if you gained, I haven't heard this, but I did gain slowly for about 6 months. Bella gained slowly for a while. I hear it sometimes from longtime dieters. You did too?
15 pounds I gained when I started carnivore.
Okay. That's like, scary.
Right. You're like, am I not supposed, like, you feel great. I was like, my gut's great. I don't have any problems, but I'm, you know, and I really didn't do it to lose weight, but you're like, oh, girl, you know, you're like, those clothes aren't fitting anymore. So you second guess yourself and you want to quit. And then I'm like, no, I'm reading all of your guys' stuff. They say, just stick with it. So you really got to trust the process and just experiment.
Yes. And, you know, so I see people who want to quit after they've gained literally in the first week. They're like, I started carnivore this week, but I'm gaining. I feel like something is wrong. I was like, well, maybe not. Yeah.
It all goes back to that awareness piece in your story. You know, like if you're one who was overeating, like you were consuming in a surplus, then you transition over, you probably are going to lose weight. But if you're like me, like I sure that I was probably under eating for my activity level. And then when I switched over to like more high fat meats, obviously I'm eating, it's just science. Like, you know, you're eating more calories. So naturally you're going to gain. You're just not aware of where you started. So self-awareness is everything.
Is there ever a point when somebody does go like all in carnivore, you know that you're working with somebody who was a long-time dieter, and just like you and me, they start carnivore or at least something close to that, and they're all in, they're just eating, it's their reverse dieting period, and they're gaining. Mm-hmm. Is there ever a point when you would say like, okay, so it's been 2 years, like, that they should start evaluating that, or do you just let it go? Like,
no, there comes a point where things should taper off, like your body should start adapting. So one, just make sure you know where you started. So calorically, like how many calories were you consuming when you started? Okay. That's where tracking food comes in handy, and you don't have to do it forever, but you just need to understand like what is in the food that you're eating, you know, because if you're eating high fat meat, you're going to be eating more calories. If you're eating low fat meat, you're probably going to be eating less calories. Just understand the basics. Hunger and satiety cues are everything, because if you come from a chronic dieting background or disordered eating background, your hunger cues and satiety cues are so thrown off Like sometimes you can't even feel that you're full. So I think that is the biggest issue that I see with a lot of the carnivores, especially the ones who come from a disordered eating background, is you don't know when you're full. Yep. You know, you can't sit. So it's like, okay, so that's when you start implementing some habits that are going to help them, you know, try to sense that more, like slow down when you're eating. For me, you know, I love the meat bars, but I noticed when I was cooking 2 whole pounds at one time, and say I'd been fasting for a while and I'd done my workout, like I'm really hungry, you know, like I'm ready to eat. I would eat 2 pounds and not really notice that after eating maybe a pound or a little more than a pound that I was really full. It was just because I was cooking all at one time. So like little bitty tricks like that. So I started cooking 1 pound and I'll eat it all to satiety and I'll sit with myself. And if I'm still hungry, like truly hungry, I'll give about 20 minutes, then I'll cook another pound. And then usually I don't much. So that's like a little trick that I use.
Yeah, I have noticed the same thing. If it's on my plate, I will typically eat more. Now that's not to say that I'm placing a limit. So again, I have to have at least 1 full pound of meat. If I'm hungry, it's going to be a full pound. That is baseline. But then I'm with you. If I do feel afterwards like, no, that didn't cut it. I don't shame myself at all to go get more.
I don't either.
Yeah, but I do have a hard time. My hunger cues come kind of slowly. I can realize that I have overdone it, but it takes a while. You know, like, oh my gosh, why did I do that?
Yeah.
So it takes a minute.
In my experience, it's easier like with high fat meat. So like I made pork belly this morning for the first time in the air fryer, and it's really, really fatty, you know, and I'm not used to eating that. And I noticed when I was eating it, I was like, you know what? I don't get full as fast with high fat meat versus high protein. I know I fill up pretty quick with like leaner high protein meats, but like with the fats, I think it's just more because it's a hyper palatable meat. So just aware of like food choices, you know, and how your body feels when you eat it and how you respond to it as far as feeling full or not, you know, habits. So it just all goes back to habits.
Yes, I do think I've listened to Vanessa Spina quite a bit, how we all do have a protein quotient that needs to be met in order to, you know, meet our basic needs. So I do think getting enough protein is important. And some people say that they don't feel like that cut off, like, I'm good, unless they also get enough fat. But I'm with you. I can feel very satisfied on a leaner day. But for me, I do have to have more actual amount of meat. I had pork belly from the air fryer today too, and it was delicious. But one little bowl, I can eat that and feel stuffed, whereas the same little bowl full of lean meat ground beef bars, I'm going to need some more than that. And so, you know, sometimes people will say, I don't like leaner days because I'm hungry. I'm like, then eat more lean beef, right? You're going to need more beef.
You can get away with eating higher protein, lower fat meats, you know, more of it. And I tell people, like, as far as, because everyone's like, well, how much protein like per meal should I be getting? And I was like, realistically, like to meet our threshold, like our needs with amino acids and micronutrients and all that. I mean, really, we can put away at least, I'd say minimum 30 grams. I tell people 30 to 50 grams. Like if you really want amount, you know, and you have people eating meat, I have no problems putting down meat at all. Like I can eat 2 pounds in a sitting, but not everybody can do that. So 30 grams is my minimum that I tell people, because you need to make.
But that would not be for an OMAD. That's not for an OMADer. No, you're talking
all meals. So say you like 3 or 4 meals a day, that would be more your range per meal. It's going to be probably 30 to 50 grams is where I tell people.
In a day, you're going to need at least, I do, about 1 gram for 140 grams. That's what I weigh. That's sort of my goal weight. I need 140 grams.
And mine's way higher than that. You know, and I lift weights, I do CrossFit, I'm very active. So like activity level and your goals plays a lot into that too. And personal preference. Oh, I mean, there's some days I can smash 200 grams of protein, like nothing. And I feel fine. Like people are like, oh my God, you're going to die. Like you're eating that much protein. And I'm like, nah, I've been doing this almost 2 years. And this is probably the healthiest I've ever been. So
yeah, I have those days. I do too. I've definitely, and I don't typically calculate, but when you buy ground beef, it's not that hard. You don't have to be a mathematician to be like, oh, there's the number times 4. Oh, okay. Well, this pack of meat has 100 grams and I just ate 2 of them. Well, there you go.
And that's a question I get too. Well, if I'm trying to track, what should I eat? And I'm like, for simplicity's sake, I was like, ground meat is the easiest to track. Ground meat and like eggs, really.
Okay. Another topic I've wondered about with you. I've heard you say that you don't love labels and rules, that kind of thing. And I know, I think most of us kind of bucket, but I know that you personally feel your best when you eat a pure plant-free carnivore diet, not because it's a name, but because that's for your Crohn's and your gut. That's what works for you. Same for me. Different reasons. Mine was more IBS and just addiction kind of issues. But I love calling myself a carnivore. I just kind of identify with that, and I find it fun because it suits me. But what's your take? Do you feel like it's helpful or hurtful for most people?
I don't mind. I say most people understand when you say I eat the carnivore diet. And when people ask me what I eat, that's what I say because they relate to it easier. For people that are already in the carnivore community, I feel in my experience with working with clients is they get so wrapped up in following a strict, rigid carnivore diet when you do that. And I'm like, guys, just call it a meat-based diet. Like you don't, if you are okay with some carbs or some vegetables, which I don't eat any vegetables just because they tear me up. I feel better not eating them. But I can do some white rice. I'm like, there's no need to shame yourself or make yourself feel bad because you're okay and you can moderate these things.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be strict carnivore. I mean, really, you can diet however you want, but yes, like saying carnivore, like most people relate to it. So like if I'm asked what kind of diet I do, I say carnivore just because it's easier for people to understand, because that really is, I mean, occasionally I'll have rice cakes maybe around my workouts if I feel like I eat but other than that, I mean, everything I eat is meat. I don't vegetables, no fruits, like it's just meat.
But if you were able to eat vegetables and fruit and feel exactly this good, I'm going to assume that you would sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Like, I don't think there's any need to exclude any food groups as long as it doesn't cause any physical negative effects or you don't have any emotional negative effects with it. Yeah. So eat carbohydrates, huge, well, physical one, is a biggie, especially with my Crohn's. And 2, emotional. I do not have a good relationship with sugars, carbs. People will be like, oh, you're fine. You know, the food pushers, just eat one cookie. And it's like, no, I understand that is a gateway drug for me. If you let me, I want a package. Like I will crave it all day. And that's all that I want.
Yes, absolutely same. And it would be like telling a recovered alcoholic who had had their entire life ruined by alcohol to then later be like, it's one beer. They'd be like, are you kidding me? Right? Versus telling everybody that they have to be teetotalers, which is also not true. Some people can have one beer and it doesn't even, they're fine. My husband is one of those people. He can have a beer and it's just, he's not out to get drunk. He doesn't tank his entire life. It's just, it's fine for him. He's also the same way with Oreos. That is not me.
Oh, no, I will want the whole package of Oreos if I have.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So when people ask or they say, oh, food addiction isn't, it's not a thing, and you relate it to being an alcoholic, then they understand, like they can understand that addictive mindset and process. And they're like, oh, okay. And then because it's for real, it is for real. And some people will have different shades. Like I can moderate alcohol, for example. Yeah. I don't binge drink anymore like I used to. I can moderate that. I can moderate some stevia or maybe some artificial sweetener here and there. I can moderate that. But even gum, I have to set boundaries for myself. Like, Katie, you can only have 2 sticks after your meal, and that's it, because I'll chew a whole pack if I don't do that. So just knowing yourself and your habits, man. But sugar's huge, like gateway drug for me.
Absolutely. But know yourself. When people ask me, can I have a
So,
little dairy? Like, I don't know. First of all, how does it make you feel? And second of all, can you have a little dairy? Because
yeah,
some people can, and it's fine. But then
do.
others, a little turns into a ton, and then their skin is garbage. And, it just affects us differently. So even though I identify as carnivore because it does
Mhm.
work for me, I think the danger in that is if I, Kelly Hogan, did start to feel anything that I felt like needed tweaking, would
Mhm.
I be willing to change anything because I
Yeah,
so identify as that? And I think sometimes that's a danger. I like to
because
think that, yes.
yeah, that really, and that's what it all comes down to. Like, what's your relationship with yourself? Like, are you going to be okay if you need to tweak something? And sometimes some of us do, whether it's macro ratios, protein, fat, whatever, or, incorporating some carbs or something. Like, are you going to be okay doing that because you've put a label on yourself? If you're fine, you're like, hey guys, I got to change this up. So, and you're fine with that, no problems.
Yeah,
Just got to know.
I've even felt like narrow categories put on myself through the years. Like Kelly Hogan is the burger patty lady that doesn't work out.
Me
Okay,
too.
well, that's fine while that applies. And now it's suddenly people are like, what's with the air fryer? I was like, I got an air fryer. I've been doing a little working out, and it's almost like the shame of I've changed. But humans are kind of designed to do that. It's okay.
Same. We don't stay the same. I
No.
always say, like water. Be like water. You got to flow with life. Like, it's going to change. You just got to be okay with it.
Yeah. I think as long as we're willing to make adjustments along the way and that we don't hold people to like, she said carnivore and that's an avocado. Like,
Right.
come on. If it makes you feel good, it makes me feel good to identify as an all meat eating carnivore. So I think it's safe. But as soon as it becomes like, man, I really want to change something, but I can't because then I think it is an issue. All right. So I'm new to this coaching thing, and I am basically there to like cheerlead for them, accountability, give them some tips, how to go through, I've been through withdrawal myself. I don't claim to be a medical expert. I know that you are in the medical field and you've been coaching
Oh,
for a
yeah.
while.
Yeah.
Yes. I know I saw on Instagram the other day, you polled the audience and your audience said their biggest struggle was consistency. And I'm sure you see it like I do. People who know what they want, they know how to get it. And then it's like, I did something different. They go back to their old ways. All of their progress is gone. Why do people do that? Why?
Yep.
How can they fix it?
Yep. Again, all goes back to self-awareness and habits. When we talked about when we started this, is people under eating, not realizing that they're under eating. Like, your body is designed to keep you alive. All right. So you're hungry for a reason. So making sure you're eating enough calories first. 2, making sure you've set a realistic goal. Like, just because you see a certain aesthetic and social media it's like a double-edged sword. Making sure like, oh, well, I want to look like her and say, like I CrossFit, but if you don't like CrossFit or doing what it takes to train to get that certain aesthetic look, that's not really a realistic goal for you. Or say you don't like meat, or, you hate vegetables, but you were told you need to do the vegan diet. That's not going to work if you don't like it. Like, you got to like doing, and just habits are everything, so if you notice, hey, I get hungry when I sit in front of the TV at night, but I know that I just ate dinner an hour before. So like, that's a learned thing. We've wired our brains to think that we're hungry during that time because that's a learned habit, just little things like that. Or, say like, cause like it's fair time, around here, say you go to the fair and you ate a meal before you left, but you smell all the food and you're thinking about all of this food. Naturally, we're going to be hungry, but are you really, cause most people in that instance are like, oh, well, I'm hungry because I smell bacon, so I'm going to go eat because I'm hungry, but you're really not hungry. So self-awareness pieces like that. Or say you just have a really poor relationship with yourself. Like, guys, you'll see this, you'll hear this. You can't hate yourself like skinny, healthy, strong, whatever adjective you want to put in there. If you're constantly hating yourself, or like you look in the mirror and you're like, well, you binge ate again this weekend, so you're just going to say, well, guess this week's shot or this weekend's shot or whatever. So you just continue on with your self-sabotaging habits, so really that's what it all comes back to. You got to pick something that's realistic, pick something that you like, make sure you're healthy first and you're eating what you should, and habits. It really all comes back to habits.
Reminding yourself, making it more visible maybe of exactly what you want, I think is really meaningful.
So I'm a big fan of journaling. So, or dumping, just brain dump things, or have your check off list. Yeah. You got to have best habits in place to keep you on task, and they need to be things that you like. In my non-negotiable, I like to get up and move in the mornings. So I work out at 5 a.m. most mornings, or I'll go walk before work because I have a step goal that I know that I need to meet because I feel my best when I'm active, so little bitty things like that. Sure. Like, okay, I'm going to work a 12-hour shift today. And I know that I have to have at least 2 pounds of meat with me. I usually bring 3 just in case I get super hungry and it's a really busy day. Like making sure you have those things in place. I bring an air fryer. I have 2, Al and Abe. I've named them both. And I think most of us have named our air fryers, which I love.
Yes.
Just little bitty things like that. Make sure that you have your day set up, look ahead. What am I going to have to do? Do my kids have a bunch of stuff going on in the evening? So do I need to bring my bag of meat? Like Karen always brings her bag of meat when she's canoeing, and I love it. So like that. Those are what are going to save you. But you got to remind yourself of your why and your commitment to yourself every single day, or you're not going to
like mentally and physically setting yourself up to succeed with this day, like making it all in place. We do this sometimes with our career. I can lay out my clothes for work. I can have my lesson plans ready. And so then the next day, I literally just have to follow through with my entire idea for how my teaching day will go. But then sometimes in our personal lives and for what we really want for our bodies and our health, it's like, I don't know, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't. I'll try. That's the big thing, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, like you can wish it all you want, but you got to put some action behind it too. And like, don't make it difficult, like pick the big things that are going to create the most change, so making sure you're sleeping, because I don't care what body goal you have. If you're not sleeping, you're not going to be functioning at your best. You can't think straight when you're sleep deprived, so sleep, make sure you're eating, foods that work for your body, and just make sure you're moving, and you got to tell yourself that you can do it every single day. Like write notes. Like I will write Post-it notes and I'll put them up on my mirror.
What are a few reminders? I'm just curious that you have.
I have one that says like, you don't always have to be a human doing, you can just be a human being, because I place worth on like my productivity and achieving. I know that about myself. Making sure that I rest. Katie, it's okay to take a rest day. Like, and not do anything, because you're constantly go. Like I work in healthcare, I work in coaching, and you're constantly responding to things all of the time. So whether you color, like you guys will see me coloring, that's my self-care time. I'll give myself, 20 minutes or something to like sit and color. What is it? You are worthy simply because you exist. That's another one that I have up there.
Yeah. That's
Nothing
good.
more. Just little things like that. Get on Pinterest, man. Pinterest is great. Scroll through. There's all kinds of inspirational things on there. Write them on a Post-it note, put them on your mirror.
Yeah. And something that hits home, obviously. Don't just print off random stuff. If I were to print off, it's okay to just be doing and take a rest day, I'd be like, I know that's every day. Like I have a hard time making myself get up and do it. That would not be my quote, but it works for you. We just have a different, different goals.
Yep, absolutely. I have to tell myself that I don't have to be doing something all the time. It drives people crazy, but I'm aware of it. So I try to work every single day.
Yeah, I love that you do your coloring. I've started to see that coming up a little bit more in maybe just health and nutrition, probably not just carnivore, but in the carnivore space. Like I see Diary of a Shrinking Mommy, Amanda, how she does her cross stitch. I've done some paint by numbers. This is my favorite one. I'm still very proud of it.
I love it.
And I think part of it is to give yourself a little mental break, but also as a repetitive, calming activity that can literally help your body to chill. And having like hormones calm and a calm mind and a calm body is not just playtime. It's not like you're just wasting time with a coloring book or some paint. I love to crochet. I've done that for years. And I do think it's a really healthy thing to find something that's not exactly mindless, but close.
Right. Hey, if in doubt, go walk.
Yes.
One, you'll get in, go get out in nature. Like nature is one of the best doctors.
All right. Any final words of advice to somebody who's getting started and maybe consistency is their struggle? You've given a lot of good things, but I want to give you one more chance if you have anything else to talk to the people here.
Yeah. So one, grant yourself some grace. Like it's okay. You don't have to do everything perfect. Just pick the foods that you love, pick the movements that you love. If you need, hire a coach, someone that'll help you for a little while. If you need accountability. So being self-aware enough to know like, hey, I can't do this on my own very well. Maybe I need somebody to help me along. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Make sure you talk to the people in your life around you, because your relationships and your environment and the things that you consume are everything, especially social media. If things and people and accounts or whatever, you feel like you're stuck comparing yourself to that, like get rid of accounts. Don't follow accounts, follow positive people, set your environment up for success. Like if you have trigger foods and things in the house that cause, problems for you, get them out of the house if you need to, or tell your spouse like, hey, I want you to hide this because this is what I'm doing. Okay. So little things, set your clothes out in the morning. Like I will just go walk in my scrubs. If I don't have my steps yet, I don't even give myself an excuse to get out of my scrubs. I just go do it. Lay your clothes out in the morning. So it's little things like that, little habits, one little change at a time. That's all it takes. But grant yourself grace. We are not perfect human beings. We weren't made to be perfect. You just got to be consistent. Consistent and effort is everything.
Even tiny consistencies. I'm with you on that. Another thing that you have said before is if you're wanting to change your brain and your body, you have to change what you're putting into it. And you just alluded to that. If you are constantly watching, if you're constantly seeing commercials on television that are very triggering, and that's what a lot of it is drugs and food, medications and food.
It is.
And watching super negativity, if it's all, I love a good murder show too, but if that's literally all we're filling our heads with is like distrust issues and food commercials, maybe, and you suggest when you do take a walk, put on a podcast that represents something that you're working towards, like fill your head with something like that.
Oh yeah. Like be a forever student. Like there are so many resources out there. Like Kelly was a big resource for me when I started. She was one of the first people that I came across. And I'm so grateful for that, because you're like, just eat meat. It doesn't have, I don't even remember what podcast you're on. You're like, it doesn't have to be the fancy meat. Just buy it. It was great. I was okay. I speak her language. I can do this, reach out to your fellow carnivores, because like we have a fabulous community full of positive, helpful, loving, supportive people. I absolutely love it. Reach out to them. Like that's what we are supposed to use social media for, like support people.
Yes. I get comments and people asking all day, every day, just here and there, not like constant flood. And I'm so happy when somebody says, I'm struggling today. Can I talk to you for a minute? And it's like, yes, of course. Thank you.
Because I have tons of people from like not in the US, which is amazing to me. Like just hop on Instagram video or whatever it is. And like, you can talk to somebody in the UK or wherever. Like it's fabulous. It's a fabulous resource if you use it in the right way. Yeah,
I agree. All right, everybody at home, if you are not already following Katie Kelly, she is Little Bit of Fit, and I'm going to link to all of her stuff below. If you're looking for a coach, she would be a fantastic one. If you're looking for somebody to inspire you on Instagram, I am inspired every day. You're going to see her climbing that rope, and it's unbelievable. You are very fast. But don't feel like, oh, I don't know, that's not really for me. CrossFit is not my thing either, but to see somebody doing something, right? Like that's an inspiration for me to do what is my thing. And I love my trampoline. That's
Pick what you love to do.
Yep. And it's not a problem for me to make myself get on the trampoline because it makes me feel good and I smile. Yeah, it's good. All right. Thank you for coming on to talk to me, Katie. I am a huge fan of yours and I'm really grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Great. Bye.